Alright, this is part 2 of my Burning Heaven setting, and I'm going to continue with the races. The next race is the Arilu. They live to please their deity and follow the tenets of his religion. It is sacrilegious for the Arilu to worship any other deity other than Namashpaj, though some do at great risk. They are very religious, at least as they see things with their gods' strange tenets. Their personal feelings and views are second to those of the tenets of their faith. Their appearance, they are small reptilian humanoids with two small tails. Their tails are black, purple, and dark green in color and form beautiful patterns all over their bodies. On their spines, they have sharp, small, bony plates that are a deep red in color. Their rib cage is on the outside of their chests and sides, and they have no scales on their stomachs or chests, but rather have black, thick skin. They have webbing between their toes and fingers. They have 4 fingers and 4 toes on their hands and feet. Their eyes are black orbs with small white dots in the center. They can see in the darkness, but many travel with torches, especially during religious ceremonies, for the effect of the flames. They are very good swimmers and can spend long periods of time beneath the water before needing to surface for air. They prefer areas near water, but they can live in other locations if necessary. Those that do live far away from the water often take pilgrimages to water sources for religious reasons and services. The Arilu are a strange race as they have 3 sexes. All 3 sexes are needed to produce offspring. One of the sexes is called chal, and they produce soft egg-like capsules with thick membranes. Another of the sexes, listum, produces an orange liquid that fills most of the egg-like capsule. The last of the sexes, naish, produces a powdery substance that fills the remaining space in the egg-like capsule. And then this egg-like capsule are basically guarded by a family unit of 3 adults comprising one of each of the sexes, but it is not uncommon for multiple family units to live in the same home to aid in the difficult trials of life and the upbringing of the young. And the egg-like capsules take 2 years to create, and then that's pretty much the period of gestation for 1 to 10 offspring to come out of that sac. The Arilu do not believe in long-lasting committed relationships and only stay in a family unit as long as it takes the children to grow to 2 years of age. Many Arilu find new mates after their children are grown to this 2 years, but some rarely find family units to continue to breed for life. So there are some monogamous relationships, with 3 people. Children older than 2 years of age choose one of their 3 parents to cling to and follow them until they are adults. They're a short-lived race. They rarely live past 40 years of age. And I will go into their culture next. Okay, the Arilu culture is very warlike and would like to rule over all the other inhabitants of the world. They are the only culture that uses slave labor, and their war galleys are filled with drugged slaves that propel their fast ships with the ferocity of a raging storm. The drugs kill the slaves in a matter of years, but they outperform any other sort of race during this period of drugged life. So really, the drugs just they just destroy them, but they are so physically fit that they just propel the ships to great speeds. They use questionable practices, and many claim that they have contacted beings from other planes to give them any edge that diabolic beings can give. It's also rumored that maybe they've made pacts with the Galanamia, the demons of the setting. But again, these are all rumors and really can be taken in any direction that any GM wants them to take. They are full of ambition and will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. Their masts of their ships usually have recent victims of past exploits nailed to them. Sometimes these poor souls are still alive, and their morbid wails are the songs that their enemies hear when their ships are near. The Arilu are feared by those that live nearby. Their preferred locations, they prefer to live on water or near water. They like living in areas that are scary or dangerous, and their architecture resembles a Gothic style. Clothing and decoration, they like to wear trophies from fallen victims and wear them on their person. Some of these decorations can be quite morbid. They paint their faces in ways that make them look more ferocious or death-like. The Arilu culture is known for being very just ambitious overall, and they are known to be more evil than most. There are always exceptions, however, and they are willing to do things that other humanoids wouldn't even dream of. Alright, that's pretty much their culture. The next race is the H.A.R.P. Their demeanor, they spend most of their free time enjoying the wild places of the world, and also in reading and acquiring knowledge. They can be excellent trackers as well as dabblers in the magical arts. The H.A.R.P. are voracious readers, and they can't get enough of the written word. They will read almost any topic, no matter how dry the material, if the book is available. As far as their appearance, they have 3 long legs, 2 in the back and 1 in the front. The back 2 legs have feet with 4 toes, while the front foot can also be used as a hand, as it has a thumb and 3 fingers. The main bulk of their body leans forward at a 45-degree angle, and the front leg comes out of the center of their chest. They have shiny leathery skin that normally comes in a random pattern of the following colors: black, orange, green, and brown. Their faces rest on a 3-foot-long neck and are broad yet thin. This neck comes from the top of their body and allows them to lower their heads to the ground to smell. They have 2 small eyes that are normally green or blue in color. They have 4 nostril holes where we think their chin should be, and their mouth is in the center of their faces. H.A.R.P. are omnivores and will eat just about anything. They roughly live to about 100 years old. They're notoriously quiet in their movement, and they're just renowned scholars. Whenever they bump into other people, people are impressed with how much knowledge they seem to possess. Okay, I'll go into the H.A.R.P. culture. Most of them have a personal library in their homes. For those of them that travel frequently, they tend to have at least 3 or 4 books with them to read during downtimes. The H.A.R.P. have an almost religious view of all knowledge, and will treat any mundane book like a work of art. Seeing a book being burned or destroyed would totally just snap them into 1,000 pieces. They'd be so irate. It would just make them insane. When they aren't reading, they do love to walk in the wild places and appreciate the natural beauty around them. So the perfect day for this race and this culture would be to find a good book, sit under a tree, and possibly by a brook or a creek, and just read. Their preferred locations, they prefer small rural communities where they can have both a good book to read in a quiet place and to be able to take a walk in the woods. They like lightly wooded areas, and they like the light just filters down, and they don't really like direct sunlight as much. Clothing and decoration, they love tattoos, especially favorite quotes from books they love. It is not unheard for them to tattoo their faces as well. Some go so far as to have an entire short story tattooed on their bodies, especially their backs or chests. Most of them prefer to be naked in warm weather, but they will dress in leather or furs during colder weather. They have small piercings of small painted wooden sticks in seemingly random places on their bodies. They don't have like a standard place. They like living a quiet, peaceful life, and let's see here, what else do they need? They just love being close to knowledge and hearing the accounts of other people. Whenever strangers come to their town, they're willing and able to listen to what they have to say, and many of them write it down afterwards. Okay, the next race is the Gadim. They believe that they are descended from primordial angel-like beings that roamed the heavens before they burned. As such, they basically go between being proud and humble, and they like to recall what they once were, but no longer are. They are quiet and thoughtful and tend to reflect and choose their words carefully. Most Gadim suffer from wanderlust, spending the bulk of their adult lives exploring the open seas. Their appearance, the adults are about 5.5 feet tall and are pretty slim, typically weighing about 125 pounds. Their skin is hairless and has a pale blue hue and a texture resembling fish scales, though closer inspection reveals an almost feather-like pattern. Their eyes are very large and navy blue to black in color, and they have a third eyelid much like a cat. Their eyes are small and lie flat against their heads. Their nostrils are located directly on their faces without much of a visible nose, giving them the appearance of having 2 round holes directly between their eyes and mouths. Their mouths have thin lips and small, sharp turquoise teeth. Their skeletons are lighter than normal, granting them increased quickness and agility, but at the expense of strength and constitution. Gidim have two dark vertical ridges about 6 inches long on their shoulder blades. According to legend, these were once wings, destroyed when the heavens first burned. They live pretty long lives, supposedly from their divine heritage. Many live as long as 500 or 600 years. But with their, I don't know, the world is pretty violent at times, so sometimes they don't make it that far. Okay, and we'll go into their culture next. Okay, Gidim culture. They live a lot on the coasts, and it combines elements of both urban and rural living. They typically revolve around a portal city that serves as a center for trade and travel. And their suburbs provide goods and services from craftspeople and farmers. The populations are a mix of natives and foreigners. There are some other races that mix with their culture, so they know a little bit more about them because they travel around so much. They tend to sometimes bring back things that they find and bring them back to their town. But lots of places on the coastlines is where they live. Let's see here, what else they got. Their clothing and decoration. The closest thing to a norm in this culture is nonconformity. Clothing varies not only according to climate, but also according to trade. The people who live on the coast are always interested in the latest foreign fashions. They're used to dealing with outsiders, so they're not as xenophobic as some of the other races have been. And they're outgoing and open-minded. And they're very curious about other cultures and other races. And if they do encounter these other travelers, they will try to talk with them rather than attack them. Okay, the next race is the Igigig. It's kind of hard to pronounce. They are tall carnivores, and they eat only raw meat. Their favorite drink is fermented blood, but they can imbibe any drink. If an Igigig eats anything other than meat, even herbs or flavorings, they get horrendously ill and will vomit out the contents of their stomach. They tend to think of other humanoids as walking food, but they do realize that eating one's associates is just bad form. So, that's kind of like their caveat for not eating the party members. They have large herds of animals that is their only real form of food besides fishing in the rivers and lakes. It is not unheard of for a hungry Igigig children to kill the weakest sibling and eat them in times of stress and famine. And parents don't look down on such things. They kind of believe in the strong, and if the weak happen to become food, that's the way it is. They tend to only use one hand to do things because their other hand is used to see. See, they have eyes on their hands, so they have like a thick eyelid that kind of protects their eyes for whenever they have to use their hands. So they have the eyes on their hands, the thick eyelids, and so you'll see them hold up their hand to you almost like they're waving high, or if something has to be looked at, they'll move their hand there, and it makes you think in a different way about how things work. Their vision is monochromatic, and the world for them is pretty much painted in varying shades of red and white and black. The idea of other colors is strange for them. They have thick, pale pink and white skin that sags and hangs from their bodies in strange and disturbing ways. When they walk, this hanging skin sways with their movements if the skin is not held in place by tight clothing, and they like to wear certain things to keep their skin in place. Okay, I'll go into the Igigig culture. It is said amongst the Igigig that when their race was first made, they were very clumsy. The nameless god that created them, for he or she didn't tell them who made them, was mad at them for being so clumsy and breaking things. So he decided to put their eyes on their hands so they would forever have to look to see what they were doing. This story is often told to the children, and the culture harbors a deep guilt for being abandoned by their creator god, whoever it was, because it doesn't talk to them anymore. The Igigig perform many acts of penance for this deep-seated guilt, and will worship whatever god they believe is their creator god. But none are sure which one this is. Recently, there's been a worship of the mother and father, which are not really sure if they are actual gods or they're kind of made up. But depending on what your view of gods is, that could be all right. With their eyes on their hands, this has shaped their strange culture. The idea of doing anything with both hands is a laughable one to them. Their life pretty much revolves around making everything a one-handed task. Because if they take more hands to accomplish, they work together as a team. So picture a bunch of humanoids standing together holding something with one hand and looking with their other hand. Because of this teamwork culture, they are normally willing to lend a hand to whatever task is going on around them. And they're very, very friendly towards each other as far as that stuff goes. Because of their feeding habits and eating meat or drinking blood, fermented blood, the large animals that they feed on have to be tended. So there's lots of shepherds, and there's also lots of fishermen. They prefer to live in areas that are close to rivers and lakes, as well as plains or rolling hills where they can take care of their livestock. Their clothing and decoration, because of their loose, sagging skin, they try to contain this with bands of metal or cloth that is wrapped tightly around them, much like a corset. Sometimes they wear loose, flowing fabrics and togas over their tight undergarments. If they think this improves the way they look, they'll do that. Or there are some in the culture that kind of look down upon this hiding of what they are, but most of the culture tries to hide their skin. Some cut and pierce their loose skin with lots of tiny metal rings, but they normally only show these hidden piercings to their loved ones. Their demeanor, because of their creation story, many of them are perfectionists and are very careful with whatever they are doing at the time. They believe that if they are less clumsy, their creator god will reclaim them again as his children. So far, nothing has changed, and they feel like they are orphan children. But like I said, there's been a recent development where they're starting to worship a mother and father deity.